Many times, people will have opinions about you that have nothing to do with you, but everything to do with them. Chapter 8: Social and Solo. Kevin el Marraleno. In this painting, I present the idea of facing the world from an individual and social context, contemplating the expectations imposed on us, and recognizing how we submit to them. The title of the first portrait is Kevin, because that's my name. The second portrait is El Marraleno, based on a nickname I got. Marraleno comes from combining marrano, which means pig, and Magdaleno, which is a name. The expression in these portraits is cold and distant, as a defense mechanism, among knowing that not all viewers will have good intentions. The bird is in memory of the days of summer staying in Mexico, when early in the morning the bird singing would wake me up. The mouse represents the memory of the time a mouse got into the basement of my aunt's house where I lived. Sometimes I would hear it roaming around at night and it wouldn't let me sleep. The artificial colored lights intensify the contrast and make everything more dramatic. In Chapter 7, we have a private place and a shared space. Now in Chapter 8, we see the contrast of our social projection and what we really are when we are by ourselves. This chapter is symmetrical with Chapter 4, in which I explore alienation and the sense of belonging in relation to the people around me. Here it is the personal and social identities. I wanted to show the perks and disadvantages of being alone or in a social setting, being able to share but sacrificing authenticity, or being totally free of judgment but not having anybody. My nickname, El Marraleno, makes me feel like I belong, a positive reaction, contrary to what somebody else would commonly think of being compared to swine. Pigs are animals with a generally negative connotation. Hence, this portrait expresses the side we hide to the public in fear of being judged. With a comparative of two portraits that are very similar, we can see there are subtle differences in what we are and in what we project. It is knowing that external opinions about us are subject to a frame of reference that many times has nothing to do with what we are. Kevin el Marraleno. My first time using pig features in a self-portrait was when I made this sculpture. I measured my head, shoulders, and face to make a drawing to scale and have everything turn out in real size. In laminated insulating foam, I started to cut the general structure with a saw. Then I started shaving to refine the forms and did final adjustments and details with sandpaper. Then I put the pieces together and covered it in a thin layer of plaster. I sanded everything again to soften textures. I painted the sculpture with acrylic paint, put on a pair of glasses I didn't wear anymore, and an old t-shirt to make it look a bit more like me. The sculpture ended up being larger than I planned, with the added volume of the plaster. I dedicated more than 50 hours of work to this piece, and I was very proud of the outcome. Time after, I made another sculpture self-portrait, this time in human form, focused more on the likeness. I followed the same process used for the previous Marraleno sculpture. This one has a lot more texture since I didn't prioritize softening the shapes as much. With time, handling, and transportation, the pieces started to wear out. There were cracks and parts that broke off, and instead of trying to restore it with the original materials to make it go unnoticed, I decided to paint the cracks with gold paint to highlight them. Borrowing from the concept and technique of kintsugi, I was celebrating the imperfections, the change, and the deterioration. I go out to dinner and share the details of my day with an empty chair. This painting was the one that took the least amount of time to complete. I wanted to explore the concept of having two paintings in the same canvas that were separated by painted frames, but still felt related and cohesive with each other. In one day, I took the photos and edited them. In another, I made the drawings, and in the last two, I began and finished the painting. When editing the photos, I removed the facial hair, I modified the light colors, and put in the additional elements. Sometimes I feel like a mouse in the dark, afraid to come out, hesitantly waiting for the moment to emerge.